What emotions do you feel as you look at this image? It has a fairy tale-like vibe to it, with muted colors. The castle in the distance, the purple sky with a lone pink cloud or sun ray, the blurred reflection of the mountains in the lake, and the foreground featuring weird bramble-like structures. Not to mention how oddly fuzzy the image feels, almost like it's taking place in a dream. It evokes a sense of nostalgia, a sense of comfort. It almost feels like something you might have seen before. Maybe you saw it in a dream when you were a kid, or saw a similar image in a book or painting somewhere. How about this one? It's a far cry from the first image, being much more brightly colored and in your face. The oddly textureless grass, aside from an almost foreboding checkerboard pattern. The way the tent and carousel stand ominously against a sky so strikingly blank and cloudless you'd swear it was a blue backdrop and not a sky at all. And who could forget the Willy Wonka-esque top hat? And from it flying an entire deck of cards. Almost as if whoever is responsible for this world wants to invite you to a game of cards. The image is extremely surreal and almost creepy in a way, but you still feel an odd sense of comfort, almost as if you've seen something like this before. Maybe at a carnival, or an old computer wallpaper from decades past. What appears to be some artwork depicting ancient Egypt, but it feels so off. The sky starts out blue, then fades into a cloudy brown sky. The water is eerily dark and purple, and the blurred pyramids are the only thing standing out in the empty background, separated by a fuzzy sand horizon. As you look at this image, that weird sense of nostalgia and comfort creep in again. Maybe you've seen this as an illustration in one of your history books from elementary school, or you saw it in a museum one time. A castle, late at night, with strange bramble trees catching your attention. As you continue to gaze at the mesmerizing image, more and more things become apparent. There's yet another castle in the distance. The moon shines so brilliantly to the point where you'd swear it looks more like a weak sun at the very early hours of sunrise. The hazy purple sky is dominated by mountains a mile high, and a lone dragon flying in the sky at the top right corner. This background features a peaceful lake with some equally peaceful flowers. The dark blue night sky has a strange and ethereal shine in the middle, which is very subtly reflected in the pond's reflection. It evokes a sense of calm and nostalgia. What is it with this odd sense of nostalgia as you look at these pictures? You feel it with all of them, but you can't point out why. Well, if you grew up during the mid to late 2000s, chances are you've seen these exact images before. Specifically, if you grew up on computer video games. Even more specifically, if you played Peggle. PC gaming was quite a different time back then. Things were radically different. You almost never saw those amazing rainbow-colored PC gaming setups of today. Most of the time you just used normal PCs, the family computer, etc. Many games were introduced to us in the mid to late 2000s, some of which became giants within the gaming scene, some are now abandonware that are still popular today because of nostalgia, and some that never really took off. One game that sort of falls into the first category is Peggle. Peggle is a 2008 casual puzzle game developed and published by PopCap Games. The game is a mix of pachinko and pinball, where you shoot a ball from the top of the screen into a field of pegs, with the goal being to hit all the orange pegs on the board. It is a concept that, much like a lot of other PopCap titles from the 2000s, is easy to learn but hard to master. The game went on to be a respectably large success, spawning multiple follow-ups, including Peggle Nights, the unceremonious Peggle 2, which was only released on Xbox and PlayStation for some reason, and the depressing and soulless Peggle Blast for mobile devices. The entire lore of Peggle and its existence is a whole different story for another day, but there is one aspect of its design that I want to focus on for this video: the many backgrounds that are featured in the game's levels. First, let's meet the mastermind behind these beautiful looking backgrounds, Marcia Broderick. She contributed to a lot of other PopCap titles like Zuma and Bejeweled. She did work on Peggle, Peggle Nights, and Peggle Extreme, a modded version of the game made to promote the launch of the Orange Box, a collection of a few popular Valve games, specifically Team Fortress 2, Half-Life 2, and Portal 1. A goal for what specifically the backgrounds were supposed to be was making them correlate with the personalities and appearances of the Peggle cast, and I think the team was able to do this beautifully. To see how, I'm going to look at various examples that I think are able to pull off the surreal nostalgia portion very well, and see how they tie back to the characters they're related to. Bjorn focuses on raw nature with many fairy tale elements. They are often dreamlike, feature muted blue and green color schemes, and are very welcoming, doing a great job at welcoming the player into the game itself. The very first one we see is the background discussed at the beginning. The second one features some close-up shots of some normally small scenery, with mushrooms, tall grass, and clovers covering the ground. Again, we see the usage of faded colors, specifically green and brown. A fairy shines brightly as she peeks from behind a mushroom, tying into the fairy tale aspect. The third background is by the side of a small river, with pink and white and purple flowers decorating the faded grass around it. There is a large tree that grabs your attention, as well as what appears to be some kind of observatory, eerily standing in the background. The fourth level takes place in a wide, scenic valley. There are Windows XP-esque hills in the background, and auroras in the dawn sky. We see a forest, which then transitions to a large meadow. The foreground features primarily red flowers along with another lone tree. This level takes place on a comforting snowy night. The sky is a dark purple, peppered with stars and a lone comet. There is a forest which breaks away into the center of the image, with a snowman and a hobbit house with its interior lights on. If you look closely, you can even see footprints coming from the house itself. Jimmy has much brighter and radical backgrounds. They take place in broad daylight, feature up-close shots of bright and lively animals, and one features some mice playing with skateboards. It closely reflects Jimmy's rad dude attitude. The level I'm highlighting here is the first level, featuring a large fallen tree over a river, with a bird resting on top of it. The image features much brighter colors and much brighter greens. Have you seen this exact scenery before? On a nature walk somewhere? Cat Tut focuses on ancient Egyptian culture and art. His backgrounds feature Egyptian symbolism such as the pyramids, stylized eyes, and the oases and rivers that were the sole reason ancient Egypt was ever able to exist. The colors on them are very muted, and heavily feature browns and tans, giving off the impression that these are ancient works of art, buried in time and slowly having lost their color. The first level looks a lot like those ancient pieces of artwork you saw in your old history textbooks from grade school. Despite the intricate detail, there are cartoonish figures on the left and right sides of the level. A dog and cat in almost the exact style of how humans were portrayed in ancient Egyptian artwork, and a ladybug in place of what you would expect to be a scarab beetle. There's also the fever level background we discussed. Very surreal. Sporkin, being an alien, features cartoony space artwork. They feature a lot of blues and purples, featuring the Chuzzle characters from another PopGag game of the same name, and are often empty aside from the main focus, usually being some kind of futuristic contraption of some kind. His first two levels are my personal favorites, as I feel like they most fall into the category of surreal nostalgia. The Amoebin features a blobby purple nebula as well as one of the Chuzzle characters, and the last flower features this weird container with a bunch of Chuzzles. This one feels extra surreal for some reason. Maybe it's the fact that it features Chuzzles, maybe it's the color scheme they did, really brings back a lot of memories. Clawed Lobster puts emphasis on sea and sea life. This is communicated through the use of turquoise and other mixes of blue and green, as well as depictions of sea life. Insane Aquarium features a serene shot of the seafloor. It features almost unnaturally turquoise water, with sunbeams and lively scenery, as well as the almost Disney-esque purple crab off to the right. Tasty Waves features the same dreamlike turquoise coloring, as well as an island in the distance and some happy sea life enjoying the waves. Personal bit, this specific level reminds me a lot of Zoo Tycoon 2, and especially its Marine Mania expansion pack, since that also features stuff like islands and sea life, and it overall gives similar vibes. Rainfilled Pumpkin is a spooky pumpkin who uses many spooky themes throughout his level backgrounds, with heavy usage of dark purples and greens. Waves is a level that screams Halloween, with its uses of dark colors in green and purple. Specifically, this feels a lot like Halloween clip art or settings you'd always seen as a kid. Did your family perhaps put this up as some sort of wall art on Halloween? Maybe a show you watched when you were little featured a backdrop similar to this. Tula Sunflower's backgrounds also focus on nature, but with a heavy emphasis on flowers and pastel colors, which sort of enforces the feeling of nostalgia. Holland Oats, based off of how windmills were popular in Holland, now the Netherlands, is my personal favorite level of hers. It feels oddly realistic, but at the same time it has that weird otherworldly sense. This feels real for some reason, especially when you consider that windmill houses are a real thing, and the fact that the level is based off of a real piece of cultural history from the Netherlands. Both 70 and Sunny and I Heart Flowers are levels that feature a really strange pastel yellow sky. Warren Rabbit revolves around the circus and carnival games. The aesthetics seen through his levels are very surreal and almost backrooms-like. We already featured one of his levels in the intro, so let's talk about another. Roll 'em. Without the dice made of pegs and bricks, this level feels especially empty. Like there's supposed to be something here, maybe dice or stuffed animals, but it's not there and it gives you weird liminal space vibes. Liminal spaces in your Peggle game? It's more likely than you think. Lord Cinderbottom, being a fairy tale creature in the same vein as Bjorn, has very similar backdrops. This time they feature more warm and dark colors, and feature more medieval themes instead of magical themes. The Love Moat features a castle that feels oddly familiar. Have you seen it before? in a storybook, in an animated movie. What doesn't help is the usual ethereal qualities. Dark purple sky, greens greener than natural green, and Cinderbottom flying in the distance. Rombai is more of the same, although with more greenery, the castle windows are emitting a comfy warm glow, and for some reason Cinderbottom is absent. Master Hu is the final master of Peggle. He's sort of a hippie who focuses on things like peace of mind. To correlate with this, his levels are often trippy and extra surreal. When Pigs Fly, despite being one of the most difficult levels in the game, is actually one of my most favorite backdrops due to just how absurd it is. There's the rooster with the question mark crest, the flying pigs, the strange clouds, the beehive with the unnaturally large entrance, and the sky with the weirdly dark gradient. It's so strange. Yang Yin features pink lotuses with yin-yang symbols in them. The strange color schemes as well as the nondescript background is oddly comforting and peaceful. Zen Frog features a four-armed frog meditating in a river of chocolate. Pale green hills on each side with Sunday-style mountains. The mountains feature clouds, but the rest of the sky is strangely empty. The entire scene feels oddly familiar. I mean, I think it's familiar. The master levels are the hardest in the game, and since this is naturally the final frontier, these levels are themed around space. Although these are far more surreal and focus on constellations, instead of Splork, who is more cartoony and features some sort of physical subject. The themes in these levels also get really philosophical and even a little existential somewhat. Paw Reader features an elderly dog sitting on a cloud, bone in hands. Above him is a tree, and behind him is the perimeter of a triangle and another lotus. Spreading outward is a spiral nebula in the dark blue void. It's ethereal. You can't tell where it's supposed to take place. In space? End of Time is a level that's strange for multiple reasons. First, there's the ethereal space background and the constellation of the dove, as well as smaller nebulae resembling doves, as well as the small moon opposite of them. However, the most eerie thing about this level to me is the name. The End of Time. Billions and Billions is a level that has a lot going on. There are the hand patterns at the bottom which are reflected on the top, the Illuminati pyramid complete with the all-seeing eye, and the level being named after the science novel Billions and Billions, Thoughts on Life and Death and the Brink of the Millennium, written in 1997 by Carl Sagan. Don't Panic is ironically based off of Peace and Reason, represented by the OK hand sign and the yin-yang. I can't help but find this funny considering it's quite possibly the hardest level in the entire game. Beyond Reason is the final level, and has notoriety due to it being the level where you can do this. Of course, there is the usual stuff, the two bunnies and the carrot, all of which being strange, transparent. And before anyone says anything, yes, I know about Peggle Knights, but honestly, Peggle Knights nostalgia is a completely different beast that I won't get into this video, largely because I don't want to derail from Peggle's nostalgia. Before I go to the concluding thoughts, I want to enter why these images feel so nostalgic. Well, first and foremost, we grew up on this game. We grew up mastering these levels, and we probably replayed through this game and Peggle Knights thousands of times. So many fun childhood memories. Another thing I feel helps with the nostalgia is how fuzzy these images are. Yeah, it's because of how these images needed to be compressed for the game's small resolution, but it really helps with the feeling of nostalgia. It looks like images taken straight from your fuzzy childhood memories. Maybe that was you during that snow night playing outside your house. Maybe you did see the Fever level in history books. Maybe you did have that one worn level as your wallpaper during those good old Windows XP and 7 days. Peggle is a comfort zone for many late 2000s kids. Since the game's inception, the levels and their artwork have since seeded themselves deep into the minds of many, becoming fictional places of comfort. A lake near a castle, a shot under the sea, a gacha game in space, the inside of a luxurious castle from centuries past. When we see these images, we get this weird rush of emotions, a mix of comfort, unease, peace, sadness, and it's one of the many things that made the first two Peggle games so great. And for all of this, these warm and comforting backdrops and ethereal feelings we get, we have Marcia Broderick to thank. She used her awesome artistic prowess to make what are generally some of the most beautiful pieces of artwork I've ever seen. And to be honest, it's kind of a shame that her work doesn't get a lot of recognition now. Peggle is one of her best works, and it does a great job of portraying a surreal sense of nostalgia.